to make you feel whole, or something that screams inside us all. Cry to the heavens to hear what everybody secretly fears. I need you so bad I could cry. I need you so bad I would die. And over it calls to me so deep. Longing, craving of what one can't have. A craving that holds everything back. God, why can't you be here? I need you, call to me and I'll be there by your side. Why didn't I just die? What is the point of this endless falling down? No matter what I try, I won't die. The energy pulls by my side. It calls to me to let it go, but still I don't think I'll ever get my fill. I need you so deeply, so bad. Wouldn't the world be so glad if I could be free from the aches and the pain? Free to be me and be what else is there within me besides all this anxiety and the endless longing? I need you so bad. I could cry, I could cry. I need you so bad I would die. And over it calls to me so deep. Longing, craving of what one can't have. A craving that holds everything back. Angels hear me, they tell me to hush. That's just the demons and they'll cause you a fuss. Just quiet your head, nobody wants you dead. The longing is demons feeding on your soul. You are already whole and God will always love you. Longing, craving of what one can't have. A craving that holds everything back. God, why can't you be here? But we are, my dear. Do not fear, you'll never be alone again. We are your eternal friends. God is always right here. Hug yourself and feel him near. Fill up your soul with hope, but there's no need to mope. You are God's divine love, he fits into you like a glove. Goodbye, longing. God is my divine. God is my guide inside. He fills me so deep and completely. I know I can keep his love and trust inside of me, where he will never let me be. Together we are one, forever whole and always done.
Hello, and thank you for joining us on Transcending Ascension Podcast, live tonight with Kirsten Mustain, a beautiful channeler and healer. I am very honored to have on the show. So excited to talk to her. We're already deep into it, so we'll bring you back into what we were discussing. So thank you so much for being here today, Kirsten. It's really an honor because, I mean, we vibe so much and we're so on the same frequency of like what we're aiming towards when it comes to our spiritual evolution. So do you want to walk the audience through? So Kirsten channels and she's had profound experiences, and we're just talking about one of her experiences she had with the Pleiadians.
All right. Well, yeah. So thank you, Diana. And I'm so honored to be here. And I love your music, by the way. It's beautiful. Oh my gosh. So yeah, so the Pleiadians. Okay, so mind you, they never told me they were the Pleiadians, but back in 2004, I was already at that time on a bit of an awakening path. I was studying yoga very intensively in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And one day, and I worked at the yoga studio as well as studying there. And one day I was by myself at the yoga studio, working the front desk, and this man walked in and he was just this gorgeous man. He was very tall and he had like a blonde crew cut and this radiant smile. And he walked in and he said, "Oh, there you are." And I was kind of like, that's interesting. And he stepped back out and he waved at someone and he said, I told you she was in here. Come in here. And this woman came in, and she was also very tall and very beautiful. And she had these little pixie ears, and she was also really radiant. And I was, I mean, it was a yoga studio. We were used to seeing radiant people there. But so I said, can I help you? And the man said, no, we're here to help you. And he proceeded to explain to me that they had sent a bunch of indigos down here to help with the coming shift. And I had never heard of indigos. I didn't know anything about a coming shift. I was really, but it was funny because, like, in retrospect, when I look back and I tell that story, it does sound weird. But I think that because of their energy, it really didn't seem weird when it was happening, because they had really good energy and I felt really calm. And they told me they would like to work with me for a few months and do energy work. And I'd never had energy work done either. And, I really wasn't. And I said, well, sure. Okay. So the next few months, they met with me once or twice a week. They did energy work on me and they told me all of these things. And it took me years to really integrate a lot of what they had said, because it was so beyond anything that I could really get my mind around at the time. And they really helped me clear my field. And they introduced me to shadow work. I had been doing shadow work before, but I didn't really understand I didn't really consciously know what I was doing. I had done Native American sweat lodges for a while, and then the yoga, and all of those things really support shadow work. But I really didn't consciously know what that was at the time. So it was really fascinating. And they told me, one of the things that they told me that I think is really important was that they drew an infinity symbol on a piece of paper. And they took the pen and he put it right in the center of the infinity symbol. And he said, this is where the earth is right now. And you have been in the right side, which is the masculine side. And now you're shifting into the feminine side, and the goddess is coming back. And so you're right at center right now, and things are going to shift. And at that time, as I was telling you earlier, they really thought that in 2012, there were going to be great cataclysms. And we were on a really different timeline at that time. And part of what has shifted this timeline into a more gradual ascension that is more supportive is us. The indigos, the starseeds, the people who have come down here to help raise the vibration. And they even then were talking to me about, you need to raise your vibration. And they cleared a lot of really dark energy out of my system, and really changed it. I mean, it changed my whole life. And several months later, I just upped and moved out to the middle of the woods. And I've been here ever since. I'm just like, okay, I need some insulation now because but it was really funny. And like I said, they never told me they were Pleiadians. And I hadn't even heard of Pleiadians when I met them. But there were things I noticed. One of the things that I thought was really interesting was one day we were talking and they said, have you noticed how many different types of soap there are in Walmart? I said, yeah, I guess. And they were like, it's amazing how many types of soap there are. And they said, we tried all of them. Because we wanted to find out which was the highest vibe. And I was like, okay. Weird, but okay. Whatever, you guys. And they had this, like, they drove this Toyota 4Runner, and they had this big thing on the top that was teardrop shaped, and it was covered with a tarp. And several times I started to ask them what it was. And every time I started to ask them what it was, I got completely distracted and forgot what I was trying to say. And that happened to me several times, and other times when I was going to ask them questions, because, for instance, they would not speak to me on a cell phone. They insisted on only calling my landline. Of course, then we had landlines. I don't even have a landline now, but they would not talk on the cell phone. They always met me at these really weird places that were public, but no one ever talked to us or acknowledged us or came anywhere close to us when we were there. And it was just things like that after the experience, I started thinking, that was really odd. And they were always really careful about not getting caught, it seems to me, in retrospect. But at the time, I didn't really, it was so beyond anything I had ever thought about that I didn't really notice those things until, like I said, when I started thinking about it. But there were things that they told me that I really literally did not understand until probably 4 or 5 years ago. And they said that eventually we would all be telepathic. They said that there were other members of my family down here, and that my blood family was not my family, but I did have a family here. But they said, you're not going to meet them till much later. And they said, when it's time, you are all going to get together and meet us somewhere. And I was like, what do you mean? And they said, well, we're just going to have to wait and see when that is. And I said, well, where will we meet you? And they said, well, we don't know yet, but you'll know. Because we'll be able to communicate with you telepathically by that time. And, at the time I was just like, okay, sure. But, they did start communicating with me telepathically, and I still every once in a while communicate with them. So, and of course, as you know, as you are experiencing too, and our friends, our telepathy is coming more and more online all the time. So yeah. Everything they told me has panned out, except for the cataclysms in 2012. But they explained to me later that at that time, that's really what was projected to happen. It's just that we shifted that timeline. So yes, woo!
Yes, I have had similar messaging about how that was supposed to be a bad timeline. But first, let's say hi to our audience. We have Stephen from BG Cast. Thank you for being here. And we have Delta Tesseract. Thank you also for being here. Love the signs. Talk it out. Yes. And anybody that wants to ask any questions during, please feel free. Because I felt that so deeply. So you were meeting physical people then that were giving this information. That's fascinating. I've heard similar accounts of these mysterious people. And the girl at the time worked at the DMV of South Africa, where it was at the time, and they didn't exist. So she got extra validation that they were from nowhere. And it was a really tall man, like you described, with kind of like a serene kind of look. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. And around the same timeline too, back in the 90s. Yeah. So it's just fascinating because I'm being really looking back at the 90s, I think we're looking back at that loop because we've looped back around. Even the fashion has looped back around. Mm-hmm. It's taken us through it all the time. It's taken us if you look at the fashion, it's moved us through the beginning all the way up. And now we're heading where things are very mixed, but also early 2000s. We're getting up probably to that 2012 point where we're going to do it correct this time. And because that's so true. And there apparently was versions of 2012 that did not make it. And maybe that might be the kind of energy we kind of feel, that there's parts of us that were in that didn't make it, versus now because of the choosing and the all the work that's gone into it, that from the hires that help us, but then also into our own sovereign selves, because at every point they always make it clear, we're just telling you stuff, you're choosing to do it, and you're actually the one doing it. It's all any synchronicity that ends up happening, or like things that look like angels are helping us are most of the time, I don't want to say they never actually come and help us, but most of the time it's our own like they help us align our energy, and that produces the synchronicities.
Yes.
They can give us the advice and that produces the synchronicity, but they aren't the one like magicking that forward. It's actually us. They're just giving us that guidance and that almost like just reassurance, just the whole connection. And I've never had a physical encounter. I've had meditative encounters, and that's wonderful. But I to have a physical encounter, I mean, that's what they say the dream is. And that's, we'll see if we ever get to that point. So I want to back to when this all happened with you. Like how did that look for you? Because was there a lot of chance? You said you didn't know about Ashiana Dean and Barbara Marciniak back then, these people that are huge voices now. And I think like not a lot of people did. Like, their voices, I think, were speaking for us now, or perhaps in an even better timeline, people did get into them in the 90s and they survived even better.
Yes.
Like, so who knows timeline wise, but as of the timeline that we all remember, they didn't, they had their own little following at the time, like a very loyal following, but they weren't like what they are now. And the internet has a lot to do with that. And with saving us for that matter.
Yes.
So I would love just to get like a visual of what the 90s felt like, because that was the point. I don't know, that was, if you believe in this or not, but where we reached ultimate density. So God wanted to take us down to ultimate density. And that was apparently reached in the 90s, where like we were separated the most from God. And that's like, but it's like boop, and then back up we go. Like we went as low as possible in the 90s. I think it was around 92 or 93, only to start heading back up. And that's when you see like the civil disrest that started. And here we are now. So how did the 90s feel as a spiritual person?
You know, at the time, so I got married when I was really young to a punk rock musician who was a thanks, Stephen. I was married at the time to a punk rock musician who was abusive, we'll say. Yeah, he was an extremely abusive person and a psychopath, really. And so the 90s were not very good for me. I was reading tarot cards, and I was practicing paganism, really. I did earth magic, and that sort of thing. But the early 90s, my ex-husband, or my husband at the time, his band fell apart and he had a big meltdown. And yeah, it was really a very dark time. And as a spiritual person, I can tell you it was a lot more difficult to simply find that peace and that sense of connection. That it comes. I've noticed over the years that it comes more and more easily, but at that time, really, my only connection to spirit was birds and animals and nature. And that was the only time I could really feel spirit. And the birds constantly came to me. I had all of these, but what happened to me eventually was I really had my biggest dark night of the soul in the 90s. And, my ex-husband, who, he's actually passed away now, but he, for years I thought he was a huge mistake in my life, but I actually see now that he was the catalyst that really catapulted me into finding my path, because it got to a point where I had to make a choice. I had to choose, am I going to just die or lose my soul, or am I going to get away from this man somehow? And I remember when it all sort of, because I really didn't, I felt so powerless. And I had really gotten off the spiritual path. And what happened was one day, he beat me up. It wasn't the first time, it was probably the worst time. And I had called the police and he'd gone to jail. And the next day I went to work and I put I had a black eye, so I put on a bunch of makeup and I wore my hair, kind of, so no one could see it. And when I got home from work that day, he was home. Someone had bailed him out of jail and he was home. And I sat in my car and I was like, I don't ever want to go in. I don't want to go in there. I don't want to do this. And I said my first prayer in many years. And my prayer was, please let me die. I just want to die right here in this car. I do not want to go in that house. I don't want to be here anymore. And I put my head down on the steering wheel and I just cried and cried and cried. And as I sat there, I started feeling like this really fluttery kind of energy all around me. And I looked up and there was this huge flock of sparrows. And they had landed all around the car, and it had rained and there were puddles on the ground and they were like dipping their beaks in the puddles and they were, fluffing their little feathers and bathing and drinking water. And I was watching them. And I noticed that even though every single individual sparrow was doing something different, the entire flock was moving as one. And that was the realization I needed to have, because everything just shifted. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm okay. I'm going to be fine. And it took me 2 years to escape from that man, but I did escape and I got out of there and I did not get killed, which, it really wasn't a near thing. And so, and at that point, I really devoted myself to my spiritual path. And that has been my focus ever since. And if that had not had happened, if I had had, a normal sort of marriage and, let's, we're going to do normal married people things and have careers and stuff like that, I probably would have never, it would have been too easy to just go along and do what I was doing. I think eventually, because I've always been very spiritually inclined, I think eventually I would have circled back to that, but I don't think it would have been so, so important, because it was just, I realized this is the most important thing in my life now, because nothing else can give me what this gives me. And so, yeah.
No,
so that was my experience of the 90s.
That
was really,
powerful, to say the least. That is such a thing to go through. And then to be the light that you are now, God bless to you, divine blessings, because not everybody would have come out of such a situation with such a spark and such a light. Because I feel daunted about, I don't want to say similar, but I got myself in a dark situation as well. I was mostly the bad guy, but it didn't feel like that at the time, because I was in a very victim mentality, poor me state, where I was also very into paganism and witchcraft at the time. So I often wonder if that brings its own karmic effects. It's why I'm kind of have an aversion to it now, because I think it's got my life to get so dark. But like you said, if you don't go to that bottom, and I had the same thing where I was praying to die. That's why it's in my songs. There's a lot of my songs where, thank God I didn't die. Thank you for not killing me. Because I literally asked God to kill me multiple times. And because I knew suicide would lead me into some horrible limbo place. And then before that, I'd been an atheist, so I would have been nothing. And then I went into paganism and thought I'd be stuck in some limbo. And then so praying for God to kill you is actually like, please save me, because then you're just releasing the soul. But instead, it's actually you could just fix your own life. You could just be the light. You could do the work, and you could save yourself. It's possible. And especially when you're down in those lower states, you're like, I could never, but you can. And it's one step at a time. And the fact that spirit showed up for you so beautifully like that with the birds, I didn't have such a moment, but I've seen the birds, that just the whimsical, how are you even doing that patterns? And it's beyond majestic. So thank you for sharing that, because that was absolutely powerful.
Yeah.
And it would mean a lot, especially to anybody that's felt themselves in such a place. There's always a light. So Barbara Marciniak, which Kirsten helped me learn how to pronounce. She's an author. She wrote The Earth Library. That's the first one or The Living Library, Earth, The Living Library. That's the first one I read. And then she has I'm the worst with titles. Beacon, or you might know better. Beacons of Light. Then there's one about enlightenment. I've got a few. I've done 3, and they're just. She's so on point. Sorry.
Yeah, the Pleiadian Keys. I think is it the Pleiadian Keys. I think she wrote that too.
Yeah,
she's a channel. She channels the Pleiadians.
Pleiadians. Yeah, I read it just like it's directly like the Pleiadians are talking to me. And that's how she even says, like, this is how it's supposed to be read. And I've had so many moments, and not just with that book, I've had it with lots, but I love hers, the way she puts it, where I open it up and it's directly speaking to me right now. Like, it's directly answering and talking to me right now. Like my kids, the one I'm reading right now, they knocked my bookmark out and I'm like, oh, and I'm going through and I had to go way back and it was directly explaining stuff right now. And I'm like, oh my God. So like the kids knocking the bookmark out, like it's always all so connected and finely twined. And it's awful that the divine has to bring us to such like a lower place to get us to like find our light. That's just how dramatic the human are. Like that's one of the things that came through earlier today. It's how they think we're amusing because Hollywood is just a mirror. We are the dramatic creatures. Like my dark period, my entire majority of my 20s was like a soap opera. It had everything but amnesia. Like
I can relate.
Yeah. And everything seems like such a big deal back then. Like okay.
Oh my gosh, everything's a huge deal. I know, they have laughed, I've often said, you haven't lived till you've been made sport of by higher dimensional beings. I've been told I'm cute so many times when I'm having like some kind of total like existential crisis and shrieking and saying, why are you doing this? What is it? Why is it? And they're just like, you're so cute when you freak out like that. We'll just stand here for a while until you feel better. Or they'll make some ridiculous joke. This one always cracks me up. So probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I was driving home one night from class. And I was I was actually shouting at my guides and I was saying, I'm so sick of this because I'm telling all of these people these things and no one believes me and everyone thinks I'm crazy and I'm not going to talk about anything anymore and I feel stupid. And I said, I feel like Linus on, it's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. And I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's this cartoon about Halloween and Linus tells everyone that the Great Pumpkin is going to come and deliver toys to all the kids and no one believes him. And he drags Charlie Brown to the pumpkin patch and they wait for the Great Pumpkin and he never shows up. And that's what I said, I feel like Linus in the Great Pumpkin. And I came up to the stop sign and I turned left and there was this enormous pumpkin in the middle of the road. And I was just like, all right, you got me. And I laughed so hard all the way home. I went from just raging and furious to just laughing hysterically. The rest of the way home, I was just like, but it was a way of saying, yes, it is true. And also just making sport of.
Yeah. I've had them where I'll be like whining about, like, if I ever try to get back into whining now, like how high caliber the energy is, they quickly will like trip me and I'll drop everything. And then I'll be like, okay, it can get worse. Like, geez, like, and then you could feel like the light, like the tangles of them laughing. Like, I feel like as like a tangle and it's like, oh my God. Okay. Cause that was funny. And just, I don't know, the way they will try to break our patterns. Like, it's like on purpose, try to break. Cause that's what like Eckhart Tolle, the mind story. And they're like really good at throwing something to get you to stop the mind story and to stay focused on what matters, or just even to break that cycle of the way the mind will like repeat those stories to keep us down.
Yeah, you're right. And it's so beautiful. And, it struck me when you were talking about, you open the Barbara Marciniak's book and it's right at the right place for you now. One of the things that really fascinates me about really good channeling is that it seems to have this vibration that even if you pick it up 10 years after it's been channeled, it will have something to say directly to you. And I think that's what sets good channeling apart. And I mean, you could argue, I mean, not even argue, that a lot of good literature that people can relate to for, decades upon decades, and
because any
like
good art
that.
is channeled.
It's channeled
Yeah.
so that, yeah, any good art, you're right, anything artistic. So it always speaks to whoever looks at it in the way that they need to be spoken to. And it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it continues to unfold in a way like and tell me what you think of this, because we keep hearing from our guides and from all these things to wait, to wait, to wait. And it's just been coming online for me that they're saying this to all of us. Are they gaslighting us? No. Yet they're also telling us to get into our own sovereign discerning power, our own, and then constantly being told, you are God. You are the one manifesting reality. You are the one. So then what does the two things mean? We're waiting on ourselves. The more we realize we are God and then fully embody that, because there's so much subconscious programming that one needs to just completely unpacked, even like years and years and years of spiritual work. Even if you were born perfectly spiritual with the best spiritual parents, like there is going to be still brainwashing to undo to get to the level of realizing you are God to that high of a degree. It just needs you to believe it, because beliefs are what print your reality. So what do you think about that?
No, I agree with you. And I think, mine are always like patience. You need to be patient with yourself and with everything else. Patience, be patient. And I'm just like,
I think it's because there's nothing. We're not waiting for something else. Yeah. It's because it's us. Right. So not being patient isn't going to help us. Yeah.
Exactly. It's just going to make us more frustrated. And what we really need to do is just find the peace in the here and now, and find the here and now, first of all, because so many of us are so wrapped up in what's going to happen in the future, and what happened to me 10 years ago that sucked so bad or whatever. And rather than concentrating on this moment and finding what's in this moment, because everything that we need to know right now is here right now. Everything that we need for this moment is right here. And that's really where it all is. That's where the work is. That's where everything is. If you're not in this moment, you're not actually experiencing the life that you have. And I think, we have so many things in this realm that are deliberately designed to completely pull you out of the moment in whatever way, that it's really difficult to just stop and say, okay, where am I now? What's happening now? And generally speaking, when you actually do that, you realize that things aren't really that bad. I mean, not always. Certainly there are bad situations, but when you really come into the moment and you just find what's right here, it really shifts everything. And I think, and that's when you can really start coming into your power, because you're never using your power if you're always focused on some faraway goal that you want to achieve, or something traumatic or whatever that happened to you in the past. And of course, that's where the shadow work comes in, because like you said, you're right, Delta Tesseract. It's time. And it is time. And it is, but it's more like they're waiting for us.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, it's true. And that realization keeps coming to me more and more and more. Like a few months ago, and I don't know why, it's just one of those intuitive things I followed, and I'm not doing it right now. It was like a few week process, But I usually have to wake up in the middle of the night, kid or something. I'm usually up in the middle of the night, and I passed this one mirror, and it just hit me. Look it right in the eyes, because I'm usually scared of this mirror. So it was like a whole energetic thing, in the dark, a mirror, right? So I would stare myself in the eyes and say, I am ready. Let's go. And I would do that every night for a couple weeks, and then whoosh, a huge shift did happen, and they basically put me through the ringer again. And it's like, well, you got to. I knew that might happen, because every time you say like, give me more, and they do, it's like another kind of mini dark night of the soul. But you learn how to go through them. But it's like another activation. And this one was like, I keep saying it's one of the biggest ones yet, because every time it's bigger and it's bigger and it's bigger.
It is. But do you find, because I find that it gets easier and easier, and the dark nights of the soul get easier to handle, and not as earth shattering. Or maybe it's not even that they're not as earth shattering. It's just that the terrain. So you're just like, okay, this is where we are now. This is the part where I lie on the floor and sob hysterically for a few hours, and then everything will be all good. We're fine.
Yes.
So yeah.
It's true. Everybody has their I freeze. I stopped being able to move.
Well, that's good. That's less noisy than me.
Yeah. What's funny is you're also a projector. I wanted to ask you about that too. Like that journey of realizing you're a projector. I think it's like an extra layer because of us not having natural energy, and the way that we have to go about maneuvering life is so much different, because everybody else has a version of energy, and we're the ones that have to wait for invitations, which I don't do, or just that like the whole so tell me about your learning your projector journey, because that was a whole journey of itself for me.
Yes. It's really funny, because when the thing that I really learned about being a projector was whenever I was looking for a job, whenever I was looking for a job, I would fill out all these applications. I'd go and I'd talk to people, and everybody always says, oh, you got to get out there. You got to talk to people. You got to sell yourself. And never worked for me. It always ended up awkward. One time I did get a job offer that way, and they offered me the job of receptionist, and I had applied for something completely different, and they didn't even realize, they thought I had applied for the receptionist position. I mean, it was just goofy. It was like, wonky. And I finally realized I have to wait for someone to invite me. Or even if I have a friend send me something and say, hey, I saw this looks like something you might be interested in. I need that invitation. And I just had it, and it came again probably about 6 months ago. 2 new yoga studios opened in the place where I live, and after having no yoga studios ever since I've been here. And I went to the first one that opened and talked to the guy, and it was just awkward as hell. And we did not, it was just really awful. And he just basically said, well, I don't think that you would be a good fit here. I don't think, And I was like, and I was like, dude, I have 20 years of experience teaching yoga. I have impeccable training. What the hell? And I was like, wow, that guy was so rude. And he really was rude to me. I was like, that was weird. So then I just said, screw it. And the woman who owned the other yoga studio contacted me and said, would you like to just come in and have a chat? I don't know if you'd want to teach for me, but would you like to come in and have a chat? And I went in, and she hired me on the spot. And it was just like, and it's like, that's how it always happens for me. I can't just go in cold. And so that's the thing that has really, more than anything else, with the whole projector thing, when I learned that, but of course I still, every once in a while, I'm like, a yoga studio open, and I'm going to go talk to the guy. I have to always remember, if I go in like that, it's not going to happen. I have to wait and let them ask me. And I think that's been the hardest. But I other than that, Diana, I really don't know that much about being a projector, because that was that was the biggest thing that always struck me. So what else? Because I'm interested to hear some other things about projectors.
Yeah, well, the invitation thing's huge. So you've already experienced that. I've experienced different things myself. I've reached out to metaphysical places here and been like, I'm a metaphysical minister, or like try to create spiritual groups and not in, I did manage to get one, but it turned out to be all of Ontario. And I'm like, I was trying to create something local, and Ontario is enormous. So no one was actually that. Yes. Actually did work out. I did some workshops for a bit, but it was just draining me, and it almost made me wonder. It's like I didn't wait for the invitation, so it was almost like I was hurting me in the process. And there's been, so that right there, the needing to wait for invitation, but then you pair that with the no energy. That's just beautiful, because then you already have no energy, so it just hits you like a wallop. And then the no energy is one of those things that just kind of affects everything in life. And like, luckily I'm married to a generator, and I have one generator daughter, one manifestor son, and then another projector son. But he's a mental projector, and he's the one that's nonverbal, but they're completely good at like channeling. Like when he's around, my antenna is sharper, is what I'm trying to say. So that he helps me in that way. But then even my daughter, I'll have like, come clean with me. And she hates cleaning, but I'm like, just watch me clean. So I can have the energy to do it. Otherwise, it's just like, And like projectors actually have the magic power where if they get like the right energy, like me and my music, like I made most of those songs in a couple days, then it just kind of dried up. I don't know. I might be done forever. That's how things are with me sometimes. Like I'll bang something amazing out and then never do it again. And it's funny, the correlation. I did a video once on starseed, ADHD, and projector, and like seeing the crossovers. And that's why I like to know people's types, because I want to know how much is each. Because then Samantha, we learned, is a generator. Because I was like, oh, maybe you're a projector too. Because I was trying to, formulate my theory. That's how I was trying to get everyone to like find out what they are, because it helps me. Because you can read all you want about something, which I have read a ton, but until you see that living example, it's how I like build my own grid of exactly what that looks like. And the majority of the projector thing is the no energy, but that's enormous and gets into everything. And then the needing to wait for an invitation. And then having people, you ever get people, like if you try to give advice or something and it's like, they get like very extra defensive, where like if a generator was to tell them something, generators have warm and sweet energy, like, which we know Sam has, like that warm, sweet energy, where apparently projectors are, and projectors are very penetrating, which I can vouch for. It's because we're only 20% of the population. It's not teeny, like manifestors are 8 to 9%. So that's smaller. Reflectors only 1%. And generators, mostly generators, and then a little bit of that's manifesting generators. They're 70 to 72% of the population. So they're the majority of the population, and they're less likely. And they're less likely to wake up, where the projector is most likely to wake up, because we get automatic cosmic information. Like since we were kids, I bet you've been getting downloads. Like the way we get downloads, everybody could do this, but the projector does not get a choice. They are flooded with this regardless. And my entire minus one sister, the mean sister, she's the manifesting generator, but everybody else is a projector. My parents, and you probably shouldn't marry another projector, because projectors, two no energy types, like they were very in love, but like our whole life was chaotic, because then my sister, who's a projector, got with another projector, and their relationship is blown up, because two projectors, it's a problem. And then because we do it to each other too, that penetrating energy, we do it to each other. So you can, but it's how we know people so easily. It's how we can read people so easily. So it's like, I wouldn't change it for anything, because it is an enormous actual superpower. It makes a lot of what comes with spirituality automatic. Like it's already a part of the thing, like your program. So I would definitely be on board with it. But it's like, I'm glad I know, because there's a lot of things I can work around now, knowing my energy hurts people. It's penetrating if they don't invite it. Like if you're talking to a friend and they've, like you and Sam, and she's invited it, like it's good to go. And then they love you. That one-on-one attention a projector gets. Like we can be like the most beneficial person for somebody else if they acknowledge it, like if they welcome that energy, if they want that level of guidance that the projector just automatically has. So do you have you felt that noticing of how automatic it just all is?
Yes, I have. And, and I never really thought about it that much because and I think that's one of the things that makes it helpful for me when I do energy work and channeling and things like that, because I am able to give people
human design. It's another form of astrology.
Yeah, human design. I do have that attention to give to people, and when they want it, it really is beneficial. It's just that it's not for everyone, and I find that in my yoga classes too, that if people aren't open to me, because when I teach yoga, I'm very I try to notice all of my students and really work with all of them, and in a very, in a way to really help them. And some people don't want that kind of attention. Some people just want to skulk around in back and and do their own thing, and they don't want the teacher coming up to them and saying, "Oh, well, if you moved your foot this way." So now I've gotten at the point where when I have new students, I just kind of let them be for a few classes and kind of try to feel into whether they really want that kind of help or not. And if they don't, I leave them alone. And I found that works much better in building the classes, because learning to discern, which student really wants me to come over and work with them and which student would prefer to just be completely ignored. So that was something I really had to learn to work with, because I did chase students off at first because I was like, "Oh, let me tell you how to do this." And they're like,
yes.
You would think if they came to a class, they'd want to know, but a lot of people just want to, they just like, "Well, I just want to do the yoga class and I don't want anybody to talk to me, and I just want to come in and do it and leave and not have any, not be singled out." So that's been kind of a learning experience for me.
Yeah, that ability to see
because
everybody.
My yoga instructors, yes, because my instructors, they were going to be in your face and making you do it right, and that was how I learned. And then I discovered that it didn't work as well for me as it worked for my instructors. So
That's
they
another
probably
thing.
weren't projectors. Yeah. I don't know.
You'll see the same generator do exactly what you did, and they'll be like loved for it, and then you get up and do it and you're like, "Boo, get out of here." Because if they're not ready, because we're giving them we're giving them energy, and some of them are just like, "No thanks,"
Yeah, it's true. And I'm glad you explained that, because I really didn't understand what that was. I knew it was it happened, and I knew I had to kind of be careful about who I tried to advise, but now I can see that. That's really interesting, Diana. I had no idea that was part of it.
Yeah, it's so deep, and it's involved in the 2027 predictions of the huge thing that's going to happen. I'm not like, it's not like, I think human design is very important for a projector to learn, and very important probably for a manifestor to learn. But generators are fine because the world was made for generators. Like the world is set up for generators. It's the entire thing is mostly orchestrated by generators, and not like anything's wrong with them. They're the majority of the population, so it makes sense. And they have such a natural way of working in this world. They don't need to worry about it. But for you, so Delta Tesseract, if you're still here and listening, so human design, there's 5 different types. It's similar to astrology, but what it is it's your energy type, and learning how to move with your energy in this world is the best way to learn how to be effective. Because if you're trying to go at things like a generator, but you're a projector, then you're going to be wasting your energy, and your life's not going to go. It's going to hit a wall, and you're not going to get to go further. And there's many more things involved in human design. There's your profile type. There's your authority. So some people like me should be intuitive because I'm splenic. And then other people are emotional, and they should think about it and work through their emotions. Or they could be mental projectors like my son. And you just learn the types, and you learn how to go. I can tell anybody what they are. If you ever want to send me your birthday details, it's the same as astrology, time of birth, place of birth and date of birth, and then bam, there you go. You get your full report, similar to astrology, but different. This is talking about, instead of your personality, this is more going to be your energy type, your drives, what you want to do in life, what you should achieve and work towards. And both things said spirituality for me. So that was funny. I did. And I got that validation after already being in it. So it's like, okay, cool. With that, I wanted to ask you about how it looked when you were setting up your business, like to set up a spiritual business like you have and have it actually going. And because there's a lot of people getting started in the spiritual world that like want to do something, like they want to work in this world. They don't want to do a boring 9 to 5. Now they want to be in this world, and maybe not everybody wants to be a podcaster. Not everybody wants a YouTube show. Some people want to like just get their hands and their feet on the ground and actually be working. So how did that look for you getting that set up? Was it hard? Was the business there? Yeah. Let us know.
Yeah. Oh, it's a continuing struggle, really. Because I'm not a business person. I really have a hard time with all those little details. I'm a big picture person. I can look at the big picture and say, oh yeah, well, this is how I want everything to look. But the nuts and bolts stuff, I'm not so good at. So it's really been a struggle. But I have found that when I just do the things that I am good at and like to do, it kind of flows. And I'm not always the best at the bookkeeping aspects of it, but I do the best I can. And really, I would like to be a lot more successful than I am. I'm scraping by right now, but I would like to be much more abundant. And it kind of, for me, because of the way that I have always lived my life, which is, flying by the seat of the pants and jumping off of cliffs, it kind of just had to happen because in 2020, I was teaching public speaking at the local junior college, and they told me I was going to have to wear a mask in class and force my students to wear masks and enforce everyone staying 6 feet apart, and a lot of other really whacked out things. And I said, I don't think I can do that. Bye. And I didn't really have any, I was also teaching yoga, but I didn't have a plan. I was just like, I can't do that. I cannot. And they changed my textbook too. They gave me this new textbook. And whereas I had spent basically 4 weeks of the semester on critical thinking skills and what makes a good argument versus an argument that is worthless, and all of that discernment stuff that I think people really need if they're going to be communicating, particularly with an audience, but even just with each other. And I was just like, I don't really like the way this is going. I'm not here to brainwash people. I like to teach people critical thinking skills. I think it's important to know what the fallacies in reasoning are. And I'm not doing this anymore. And I really didn't have a plan. I was already a Reiki master. And like I said, I was teaching yoga classes, but I just kind of like jumped into it and said, okay, well, something's going to have to work. And it's been a really difficult process. And I really don't have a lot of advice, except if you feel really passionate about something, that is really what you should be doing. And that's going to look different for everybody. And also, there is information out there, and it's good to kind of look at it. I just, speaking from my experience of having no plan and just leaping and saying, okay, here I am, I'm doing this. I would say it's probably better to do it with a plan, because I did have some pretty disastrous things happen to me at the beginning. financially and so forth. I mean, not really disastrous, but yeah, very difficult. I would say. So it is good to have a plan, and it's good to be more gradual and not just leap. Then again, if you're the type of person that I am, just leaping sometimes is what you do, and that's okay. But yeah. So I guess that wasn't really very good advice, I don't think. Because
No, that was
I'm
because
still figuring this out.
everybody's process is unique. And then authority type, we were just talking that you might have either, if it's do you know your authority type? If it's splenic or sacral, it's intuitive.
I
So,
don't.
oh yeah. So there's 2 out of the, I think there's 5 types are intuitive. So some, like if you, especially for my type
Mhm.
splenic, it's barely any information. You have to just jump every step that you get. That's all, because you don't get any
Mhm.
information. You get a tiny whisper. And if you don't take it, it's gone. And you'll just have to wait for another whisper because it's gone. That chance has moved on. And the universe is filled with
Yeah.
chances and all these things. So it's fine. And you could, still ballpark bring it back. But I've learned like it's just better, faster progression to listen to the whispers and act right away. But an emotional projector or a mental projector, or not even projector, emotional authority and mental authority, they might want to actually think it out. A mental authority would want to talk it out with someone. The other type shouldn't talk it out with anybody, but a mental authority would want to talk it out with someone. So like we all have our different, another reason why I like it, because it helps whatever our plan is, it helps us make it unique for us. Because this universe is so powerful, it can make 8 billion different unique happy endings. Like we each have
Yes.
a very high plan that we could achieve if we just do the steps. And it doesn't necessarily mean abundance is one thing I'm realizing too, because a certain level of abundance
Yes.
comes with a certain level of work, which doesn't really work with a projector. Projectors don't want to work a lot. They shouldn't. They don't have much energy, and they're more powerful when they contain their energy and then release it in bursts, because we can actually get more done than other people, but in short bursts. Like we could do a week's worth of work in an hour, but then be like, ugh, passed out for 2 days. Like, and that's definitely how I
You have
operate.
so explained so much to me about myself just now. I was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, and it really doesn't. I mean, I have learned to count the extra time that I have now to pursue the things that interest me, or to even just, I do, part of my abundance is that I do have the freedom to go outside and put my bare feet on the ground and take an hour whenever I want to, because I pretty much make my own schedule and stuff like that. I don't have huge financial abundance. I am surviving, but I do have an abundance of the things that really make me feel wonderful. So that, I think, I'm glad you brought that up, Diana, because I think that's another thing that I think, redefining your abundance can also help you realize the abundance that you do have and the abundance that you can have. I'm paying my bills and I don't always have enough money to, do something frivolous or, or fun, but I also have time in my day, and I can schedule time in my day to say, well, I probably on, I think Wednesday morning, I'm going to go hiking. And that is a kind of abundance that a lot of people never get, because they have to spend their time doing, they have a much more rigid schedule. So I have to look at that and say, well, in that aspect, I really do feel a lot more successful in my life than some of the people I see who are running, and they have a bunch of money, but they don't have any time to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so true, because time is like, there's so much that we can do. But time, I have found, is the one thing that like we really have to monitor and be careful with, and to make sure that we are living our deepest truths in the time provided in the now, because like it's so easy. It's not even like to live in, like, if you're working and you have your work self, like I used to call it my work self, and it was a whole different personality that like this robot would just come on, and she was pleasant and very capable, and she never looked tired, but that was, and then I'd come home and I would just, life would suck because I would have wasted all of my vital energy there. And like, that's no kind of life. And that's, you have to look, if you can find work, that's why I wanted to ask about the business, because if you can find work that feeds your soul, power to you, right? Like, I love what I do here. I love helping people. I love everybody I talk to and that I help. And it's like, it does so much, but luckily I have, my man pays the bills. Like, yeah. And I have to still ask for
That's nice. That is really wonderful.
Yeah. And like, and it's nice, and I'm definitely grateful, but it makes you humble too, because you have to ask for what you want. Like, please, can I have this? But I used to get very, I don't know, like some type of way about it, but now it's like, no, because this is like where I'm in my power more, because I briefly took a job last summer. I did it for maybe 6 months, digital design, which I got because of what I do here. And they saw like the stuff I just make on my own website, and they happen to be local. And it should have been a good job. It was perfect. It was a good title. It was like something artsy. It should have been cool. And it was at first. But after a few months, I was like, no, nope. Even this job, no thanks. And I quit after only like 6 months or something. Oh God, time's so weird now. Yeah, I think about 6 months, and it was just like, no thanks. And I don't think I ever want to do that ever again. I'm out for good.
Yeah, no, I can relate, because it's really, it's so difficult. And, one of the reasons that people are forced to work so much is to keep them from having enlightenment, because part of healing and part of coming into enlightenment is having the time to really go within. And most people don't have that time. And so it's really, actually, you're doing really important work by doing what you're doing, because we are really doing it for a large portion of the population who is not able to do that. And even though they're not doing what we're doing, we are actually making it easier for them to do it. And so, because we're affecting the entire collective with our energy. And so as we become more healed, as we release so many layers of trauma and distress and low vibrational stuff that's keeping us down, we are actually affecting the entire collective and helping everyone to release some of that. And, and often I don't know if this is part of your practice, but often you can release that for other people too, if in the right circumstance. And I think it's so important. And right now, especially as the earth ascends and the vibrational frequency of the earth rises, it's really important to let go of those lower vibrational energies. And it's really difficult to do that if you don't have the time to do it. And so even though you're not working 9 to 5, you're doing really important work, and you're doing work that is important for the whole collective, at least in my opinion. So
thank you. Yes, so thank you. I tried. That's like all I care about. I'm honestly obsessed. Like, I don't have friends in no, I have like one flesh friend still, And everyone else is just my online people, because I never was that person with online friends when I was younger. I had a huge group of friends, but over the years, just boop, 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 because they don't want to hear about God. They don't want to hear about the divine. They don't want to be hear about the all is mine. They're just done with it. My family's done with it. They're done with me. And then they don't even have a good reason. Like, I'm not invited to family vacations. Like, it's a whole thing. And it's like, it's fine because their low vibe affects me deeply.
Wow.
They're not even that bad. They're good, normal people. They just don't want to hear this information. I think a lot of us share that story too, of just it not vibing, which brings me to my next point, because you said you have similar ideas, because this whole fact that people are stopped from awakening because they need to pay the bills, they need to have a place to live, they need to like survive in society without being homeless, is that, and I've told Stephen about this if he's still here, if I was ever handed millions of dollars, or I've even looked into it as an actual plan, because we live in a very expensive area. So we could sell our house here and have more money to get land in one of the much cheaper areas way out in the country. So we've actually thought and plotted this plan. But let's just say I was handed lots of money tomorrow. Like, I would love to open a center. And I know you've said similar, but I want to specifically do it. And I can see it. I imagine like this summer camp. Honestly, if I could go buy an old summer camp, that'd be perfect. But these summer camp style bunkers, and just let these people come. They can detox, and not for money though, not like a fancy retreat where you pay thousands of dollars. It's for free. There'd obviously have to be some kind of screening process, because you could get creepers and stuff. But like, to let people, like spiritual people on their spiritual path, prove you're on your path, and you can come live for free for like 3 months. And then if you want to become part of the community, because then we could also have like a community where we permanently live. And then there'd be that, and we grow that up. And like that, we're talking bureaucracy not being in the way, of course, because they try to monitor your shed building. Like, you can't, let alone building a bunch of houses where a bunch of us could live and actually build a community. But that's what I would dream wise love to do, where like I would live permanently, and then certain people that want to be involved, and we would become counselors, energy healers to these people, and they could just flood in, and we could take like 30 at a time. Like, I've given it lots of thought, and then we'll heal them, and then they go after their 3. So it's be kind of like rehab. Like, some of them literally would be going to it like it's a rehab, because there's tons of star seeds that are addicts, that are addicted to one thing or another. And there'd be, of course, like no phones. You'd have to sit with the self. We could have like even ayahuasca, and just like fully allowed to be who you are. And then if they don't want to leave, like, that's when you were put into the permanent living situation if you want, and then you join the community, and we'd try to not make it a cult. So always turn into cults, and where you just like work together, be like fish, farm the land, like old school style. But like I don't know, like that's just, because to try to imagine, so I don't know if I could, like when I was working 9 to 5, I didn't start properly awakening until I was fired, which my audience has heard that story enough, but I was fired around 214. Yeah, 214, I got fired. And I stayed off for a whole year. And in that year, I did a large chunk of my conspiracy style awakening. And I learned a lot. That's when I became a pagan, a witch. And I was really into, that was a better start. I know I regret being a witch, I guess, but it was at least a start. And that's the only information that was available, to be fair. People that wake up now get to come, like, actually love to know what you think about that next. But what are your plans with the spiritual center? Like, what have you felt when you feel that calling?
I really have felt that. And when I moved out here, because I'm on 115 acres of woods out here. And when I moved out here, I really did have a vision for doing that. It's not really, and my vision, which was really similar to yours, was that I would live here permanently, and I would have a small community of people who lived here permanently, and that we would offer classes. And I really, because I'm such an introvert and I really like my solitude, I don't know if I'd want, people staying, like a bunch of people staying.
That's what my husband tells me, because I'm like that too. When I tell him these plans, he's like, you don't want to do that.
I don't know if I can do that.
Someone steal my idea then. Steal my idea.
But to have a small community of people who lived here and who could do, because one of the things that I always run into is I'm one person. And, I live alone. Well, I live as alone as you can live with 2 dogs and 3 cats. So the thing that stops me a lot of times is that I just can't do these things. And it takes a great deal of money to pay for these things to be done. So you know, and it has been a learning curve. I have learned to do a lot of things for myself that I could not do for myself when I moved here. But yeah, so my idea was to have classes and do like meditation, yoga, art classes, because I do have like an outbuilding that could be used as an art studio, and maybe build a little yoga studio, maybe do dancing. Yeah, exactly. And exactly, Delta Tesseract. And so giving that to people, and especially, I really enjoy working with young people. So I also thought, if the younger star seeds that really don't, because what happened to me was that I was fortunate enough to be really kind of thrown into all of the practices that I needed to get me where I am. And I've noticed that a lot of people don't have that kind of guidance in their lives, or they're not intuitive enough to pick up on it. Because I always just like, when I found yoga, well, yoga found me. I didn't find yoga. Yoga found me, and that's how, because I'm a projector, and that, but a lot of people don't ever find that stuff. And when I was younger, if someone would have said to me, well, hey, you can do these practices, and this will help you to relieve your anxiety, and this will help you to focus, and this will help you to really get into your creativity and be able to bring forth some really beautiful art, if that's what you're interested in. If I really wish when I was younger that, or even, when I was older, that I had some kind of guidance like that, and I had to find it all myself. So my vision of that was to be like, oh, I would love to be able to invite people in here and to have them, to do hikes through the woods, and to have places where they could create art, and where I could teach, I and my friends could teach meditation and teach other modalities, other healing modalities that would really help people to grow and heal. And so, yeah, so it is a really similar vision. It's just not the 30 people staying here for 3 months thing.
Bless the people that live there permanently.
Which I think would really be, I actually think that would be really good. It would be really good if you were the kind of person who would enjoy that.
I keep imagining, maybe, like, I'm really big, I'm like, I'll like that later. Future Diana. I used to do that when I was a shopaholic in my 20s. I'm like, that's future Diana's problem. I do that now with this plan. I'm like, future Diana will be good at this. Future Diana will be real good at socialness.
Well, I think future Diana will be good at that.
Yeah,
you go.
Well, this is practice. This is. I was saying to Sam earlier today, and I'm loving our conversation for the same reason. It's like, I haven't gotten to just talk honestly in this kind of manner until like our little together, and then just it's putting like old emo Diana back in this person. Because like when I became spiritual, part of old social Diana, because like all her friends got left behind, she got left behind. And like there's a lot of things about old Diana that got left behind. And like it's kind of like you don't realize that the human is a social creature, and being able to like have these conversations with someone and like the back and the forth, it means so much to just like feel like a person again, because like having the YouTube channel was great, and having the audience was great, but like the back and the forth, I don't know, it does something. It's just what the human does, like the way our neural networks work and the matrix and how we create together. It's beautiful, and I'm very grateful for all of you guys.
I so agree, and I feel the same way. I'm so grateful for you guys, because I mean, I've been out here alone for so long, and I didn't realize, when I was at the yoga studio, I actually had a really nice group of friends who kind of got me and didn't think I was weird, which, everyone, and I came here, and, I've had friends, but not the kind of friends I could just honestly say anything to. And not worry about them going, wow, that was really crazy. All right,
Yeah.
you go, Karen. And that was really crazy, and until I found you guys and Sam. I mean, when I found Sam, I was just like, oh my gosh, I have a friend again. I'm like, I feel like I'm in high school again. I haven't had people that I spoke to every day because I wanted to speak to them every day for most of my adult life, and I'm just like, this is just, and I have been reminded, because I did get to a point, probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, where I said, I don't think it's really good for me to be alone so much. But I really didn't know how to bridge that gap, because the reason I'm alone so much, one of the reasons I'm alone so much, is I have a hard time relating to most people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a
I love them and I love
isolation.
to talk and I love to hang out, but it's not. But it doesn't really feed me.
Exactly.
And then I found Samantha, and then I found the rest of you guys, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I have friends again, and it's wonderful. I know I never had any online friends either. It's just been, but it's such a gift, and I am so grateful, because yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Yay.
I agree. We have Samantha really is so easy to get along. Oh, another Samantha fan. Yes. She's going to have lots to wake up to tomorrow, because she's probably sleeping now. Hopefully, Sam.
Yes. Our lovely Sammy. Oh, by the way, I want to say this. Sam and I have recorded our first Metaphysical Phat podcast, and it is going to be on YouTube tomorrow.
Oh, nice. Does it have its own dedicated channel then? I'll update if you're watching this in the future. Yes, I will update the description.
Metaphysical Phat. Oh, good. Yes, it's the Metaphysical Phat Podcast channel, and we have our own channel. It doesn't have anything on it, but it will tomorrow.
Perfect. Yes. That's awesome. No, I've been excited to hear it.
Yay, you're really excited.
That's amazing. That was still such a synchronicity. Yay. When I was talking to Sam, and she was like, "Can Kirsten come?" I was like, I know her. Like, I was already, you were one of the first people I started following when I came to Twitter a year or two ago. You were the first person that I actually was like following your stuff. Because when I first came to Twitter, you had to actively search out spiritual stuff. I would like just think of spiritual keywords to like find spiritual content. And it took months of like following people, because every day you go on to be politics. It's like, I don't want politics. And then you were one, I think you were like number 2 I found.
That's awesome. I'm so glad. Yeah, it's funny, because I was never into social media at all. And when I went on Twitter, I can't even remember why. It was like some thing I wanted to follow some person, some spiritual person. And I was like, oh, I guess I'll get on Twitter. And I didn't post anything for probably 2 or 3 years. I just kind of went on there once in a while. And then I was like, I guess I'll post. And then then I started meeting actual people, that I really vibed with, which really surprised me.
Yes.
It really is.
When I first, because Stephen was the first one I had that with, and I remember just constantly I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for like the humanness to show, and like, all right, what's the catch? When like he invited me on the podcast, like, what's the catch? Mm-hmm. And then even talking to him, it took me, because I was so jaded by humanity. It took probably months before I was like, oh, maybe there's no shoe is gonna drop. And then like it actually opened like me up, and then I started talking to more people, and like Raquel and I started talking, and then like it just grew, and then it's now the group, and like there's been other people I've talked to that have come and gone, and it's just, I don't know, it's grown. And I was like you, where I had it for a year or so before I actually started using it, because I made it for like the business, but then I never actually used it, because I used to have Twitter back in my drinking days, at my personal Twitter, and I didn't use it wisely. That's long gone, years ago. Like, of the things I would, oh God, like, just why about the Bachelorette, like back when I watched that show. Don't watch that show, people.
We all have stuff like that, Diana. It's okay.
Right? That's my shame. You should have showed Stephanie. I couldn't. I mean, you probably couldn't pay me to watch stuff like that anymore. Like, how much stuff has changed with just the
I know.
tolerance of the
Right?
world.
I don't even know how people can sit through that kind of thing. I'm just like, what are you doing? It'd be better just, sit in silence. If you, yeah.
It's the dumbest
like,
down.
why are you
It's the
putting that
dumbest
in your
down.
brain?
Yep. Yeah.
Yes, it really is.
And then I think it comes
It
from, like,
really
you work
is, and
all day. Yeah. And you want your brain to be dumbed down. You're like,
Mhm.
I'm tired. I just want to watch something dumb. And then I refuse to watch anything dumb now. It has
Yeah.
to have something enlightening in it, or I'm not touching it.
I agree. Well, yeah, and I hardly watch anything because I just can't even tolerate most things. I'm just like, really, I'd like to. I've gotten to a point now. Sometimes I'm like, I sit down and I think, well, maybe I'll watch something, and then I go, oh no, I think I'll just sit here in silence for a little while, and I'll be fine. I do like to watch old movies.
Oh yeah, me
with the
too.
PH. Well, because metaphysical has the PH in the middle, so it just it's
I
one
thought
of
it
those English poet
I like
things.
that. That's good. That's better. Right. I thought it was because
PH.
that's like a pop thing to, like, spell it like that's fat. When you say, like, that's great.
It is a
Like
pop thing, I
in
think.
slang of today.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It is. But actually it was just I spelled it that way as a joke the first time, and we liked it because of the metaphysical. Yay.
That's
It'll be up tomorrow.
Awesome.
Sam and I both like to play word game. We like to play with words. Oh, good. Well, yeah. Well, I'll post the link tomorrow when I get it uploaded.
Yeah, and when I get my hands on it, I'll put it
goes.
in the description. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, thank you so much for being here, Karen. I don't want to. We're getting on an hour and a half mark, and I've learned with my projector energy, an hour and a half. If I go past that, that's when I get like, oh.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you
it.
though. I wanted to, like, when you first, so people know how this feels, like, so people know, because we were talking earlier and we've been kind of working about, like, there's that we were channeling before realizing we were channeling. So what does it feel like when you channel? How do you know you're channeling? How do you tap in? Like, if you were to teach someone the bare bones basics of how they could do it, what would you tell them?
Okay. Well, it's just so funny because I had this conversation with Sam a couple days ago, and I said, I'm not really sure how I would teach someone, because for me, what happens is, I sit and I say, okay, and the people that I channel the Arcturians, but they told me actually that's just a label that they give themselves, and they're actually us in the future.
Yeah.
But then they said, you need a label to understand it, so you can use the Arcturian label, because that is somewhat it is the name of that frequency, that energy, that frequency. But so when I start to channel and I just am quiet and I go in and I try to get out of the way. Yeah, basically get out of the way and let it flow. But there's a feeling that comes on, and I feel it coming in. So you have a little chakra, and it's at the base of your skull, right underneath. So the back of your skull. It's the medulla oblongata. That's called the Bindu chakra, and that's where it actually comes in. So I feel it I feel a tingling there, and I feel a tingling between my shoulder blades at first when it first comes in. And then the energy, like I usually like, it's really ugly when I channel, because I usually like kind of come forward and my mouth kind of, I'm like, because it comes up, and then I just start talking. And I think, or writing, I do both, but it's that tingling I can really feel when it comes in. And the first time I really tried to channel after, because I'd been channeling, and I think if you're a writer and you write creatively, you probably already do channel. Or if you're a musician and you write music, or if you're a painter, and I think you already are familiar with some form of channeling. But it's really, you can really feel the energy, and you can feel the vibration. And sometimes I've also known people that felt like a high, like really heat coming in. But you can really feel the energy flowing in. And the way, because, I did it every day for several years. I started really doing it seriously in 2020, where I would deliberately try to channel. Before that, it had just been some random thing that happened to me sometimes. But when I really started trying to channel, I just did it every day, and I just recorded my voice doing it. And what I began to notice was that the wording was not really necessarily the wording that I would have used. And some of the things that came through, I was like, wow, I never would have thought of that. And so I think one of the hardest things for me was just recognizing that I really was channeling, because I was like, oh, I was probably just making that up. Although I don't know why I would sit by myself and pretend to channel. That seems kind of a weird thing to do. But later I'd be like, oh, I probably was, I don't know, that probably wasn't really a channel. So I think part of it, okay, so I guess the advice I would give is trust. First of all, trust that you can do it. And also be careful, because there are lots of entities that want to channel that really don't have your best interest at heart. So that's the other thing you want to watch out for. If you start channeling things, no, I don't feel cold. I feel the tingling. For me, it's the tingling in the shoulder blades, and the tingling at the Bindu chakra. So, but the other thing is that do ask your guides to protect you. If you start channeling a lot of things that sound really gloom and doomy, or start talking about politics, or something like that, you might want to watch it, because sometimes because there are entities that want to channel. And the thing I know about higher dimensional beings is they will never impinge upon your free will. So one of the ways you can tell the difference is that if you start channeling things that you have to do this, or you're not doing it right, or bad things are going to happen to you, or whatever, that's probably not a pure channel. And one of the things you really need to do is do your shadow work, because you need to get all of that dense energy out of your energy field, so that you can really be a clear channel. Because until you get rid of that dense energy, you're not going to be the other thing is that you can only channel to the point that your mind will allow you to. And so sometimes it's going to be filtered through your beliefs. I guess that's what I'm saying, until you get to the point where you can step aside completely. So you may not always be accurate with it, is what I'm saying, because if you have a really strong belief, that's going to color what you say. Whether they, and usually higher dimensional beings will work with that, but those are some of the things, like some of the pitfalls to really try to avoid, because there's there's a lot of people, a lot of entities who would like to speak through people, and not all of them are trustworthy. So, but
Yeah.
also do trust yourself and trust your guides and know that you can do it, because I think anybody can do it if they just, clear it out and learn to flow. I also think meditation helps a lot, doing regular meditation.
Yeah, I like what you said about shadow work, because I found it's not an exact award of when you reach it, but there is a certain place where, like, the law of one, where you do reach service to others, and like there's like this trust opened from the universe, and they even just throw tests, and they're like, we were just kidding, you didn't have to choose. Like, I was handed a huge energy download last night, and I was like, no, send it to Andrew, my nonverbal son. I was like, send it to Andrew, and because he was just waking, I could hear him in the other room, and I felt the energy go, Murr. And then later I was like, oh, no one got it, because I felt it not go to him. And then they were like, we were just kidding, it's only for you, we just wanted to see what you would do. And then I got it, and so I was like, oh, okay. Like, they want to see if I was going, like, yeah, mwah, energy for me. And it's like, no, and it was just an instinct. It's not like there's no time to think about these things when they come in. I don't even know why. I was like, no, send it to Andrew. Like, and I was kicking myself for doing it. It wasn't until later in the afternoon that they were like, that was just a test. And the trick things you are so correct on too. I remember when I was first they would say ridiculous stuff. They would just say, and you learn. But one thing about practicing with that is just have sovereign discernment that things might come through, and it actually helps you pinpoint frequencies. Usually when I'm pulling on things now, it's one of two sources, and they're both good. Like, they're both coming with different helpful information. And anything that tries to get wonky, like if I hear myself going and something, like you said, throws a curveball, even if it's my own ego, I feel that like the energy, and then like, okay, boop, what happened there? Let's circle back. And then sometimes I'll just have to end the stream.
Yeah.
And then, or other times I'll be able to pick back up the frequency, and it's impossible to explain that to how that actually feels. That's why I was hoping you'd have the language to, like, oh, it's an energy stream that you just connect to with your mind. And it's like, okay, but how do I, because if I was trying to tell old me how to do this, it's kind of something you just have to feel into. And it's similar to meditating. So it's good because when you learn to meditate, you learn to feel your energy body. And then you start getting signatures and different streams. And you start to, like, I want to say, like, taste the flavor, but it's like not a mouth thing. It's it's an energy feeling thing. You can move your energy. You can do things with it. And that all goes into almost like building the muscle that helps you hold a stream, because you want to hold their stream. And funny, letting it be like whatever it is, like ridiculous. Like mine's kind of goes like not fully British, but kind of like a blah, blah, blah. It gets like kind of an accent on it. That's just like, I actually even try to stop it, especially the longer I go, the more the accent comes in, and it's the same accent every time. More or less. It's like I try to stop it. I know, and I've heard other channelers doing it. It's like I used to that you're faking it until it starts to happen to you, and you're like, but I'm not faking it.
I know. No, I know. I say my voice changes. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it's still my voice, but it takes on a different pitch, and it gets and it's really I think you just have to practice. I think practicing it is really the key, because then you learn what you learn how everything feels. And I'm sorry, Diana, I don't have the words to describe how it feels either, because it's really,
you have to sit down, you have to, like,
now it feels so good
and hold open.
Like it's weird because they do different things with my mouth. They move it differently. And sometimes they do stuff with my head and stuff. And I'm like, I don't, but it's really that energy, and learning to let that energy come through, because a lot of times it's very intense. In fact, the first time I channeled for Sam, which was the first time I had channeled to anyone, it was so strong. I was literally saying, you guys, I have to stop. I can't do this. Stop it. And they were just laughing. And they were like, no, you can take this. You can take it. And because I was like, I can't. I literally said, I can't take this. And then I started laughing, and they were laughing, but I was laughing. And then they said, okay, this channel is fully open now. And that's when it really started coming through. And there was a moment there that I was like, I cannot take this level of energy. But it was so much more energy because I was channeling to Sam, because when we get together, our energy just, phew. Same thing happens with you guys, all of us. When we get together, the whole vibe just goes, whew.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing, is getting more and more used to that energy and being able to handle more of it, because the more you can handle, the more they'll really bring it. And really the thing about channeling is, even a lot of times it's not even that. I mean, the words are important and they say something, but it's really the energy that is bringing you the information. And that energy is going to give you downloads that the words couldn't touch, because in the higher dimensions, words are not even necessary.
Yeah.
And in fact, they're kind of a handicap. So
yeah, you can see why they taught in parables,
yeah.
because that's because you do get senses of how it's going to look. And then I'm big on pulling on my life, because I have such a ridiculous life that I could honestly pull so many examples throughout time of like how this scenario works. But it's like, the truth is like, it came in like this emotional of like, the art of allowing, like how I felt the art of allowing, that came like a download. It wasn't like the words to describe it.
Yes.
And I had like kind of learn and explain it in all these different ways to get the meaning out. But honestly, it was like a feeling, like I actually felt my heart center open, and I felt how the art of allowing is an actual energetic thing to do, And so and it's lots of examples like that.
Yes.
The words are where we lack. If what soon we'll just be able to like beam it into people.
Yes. It's coming. Yay.
Yes. And this is helping. This right here, what we do, and the show, and your Phat podcast coming out tomorrow. I love it. So let's thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. It means so much. And I love the vibe, and we're just in for the same journey, or like at least as similar as a human could choose it. It's like we have the same profession, you know what I mean? And we're like on that journey, and it's I'm loving it. It's going really well. So thank you so much for being here. And I want to just give you a chance to like let people know how they can find you. Oh, thank you for being here. No problem. We definitely have to do this again, because this was and apparently we're giving people wisdom. So they're all appreciating it. Let them know how and where they can find you, and what your work is, how the ways, because there's many ways they can work with you, right? Let's let them know.
So I do energy work, energy healing sessions, and tarot card readings. And you can find me on Twitter at WanderAwake. Right now, that's really the best place to find me. You can also find me at Metaphysical Phat. And you can schedule a reading or a session anytime. I do, long distance, obviously. So, you can either DM me. You can also email me at kirstentarot888@gmail.com. So there's that too. But yeah, I'd love you to book a session. I'm also probably very soon going to start doing personal channels. So if you're interested in that, do let me know, because I'd like to experiment with that some.
That's awesome. I know I was just talking with Stephen about booking a session. I've never booked a healing session with anybody because of the way like entities can transfer. But then Stephen said he booked a session with you, and it was amazing, and he actually felt it, even though it's long distance, and he'd never felt it before. And I'm like, you know what? I trust you. Like, I just feel that trust, and that like knowing your energy is pure and clean. I was like, I need to too. And I've actually never done it, because I taught myself everything too, or like from books and stuff, but like I didn't have like a human guide. And I felt like that was important to bring people how to teach it and like to, because I've learned it myself. So this is how I could teach you how to do it yourself. But honestly, like if I was to finally get like an healing and like that energy work, you're the perfect person to do it with. And I absolutely want to set that up with you. And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
And everybody check out Kirsten's podcast tomorrow, Metaphysical Phat Podcast, coming out tomorrow on YouTube. The link will be in the description as soon as I get it. And thank you so much for being here, everyone. And we will see you next week. Steven's coming back on the show, and we'll dive into more metaphysical energy topics. Goodbye for now.
Yay!